Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Drew Lindsey. Drew is the co-founder at Operant Biopharma. Drew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So Drew, let's start with yourself, please. Could you give us an overview of your background in technology and what your journey has been from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as one of the co-founders at Operant Biopharma?
So right now, I'm an assistant professor at Brown University where I study computational neuroscience, and my research at Brown has revolved around understanding how biological brains work and trying to build models of those brains, artificial brains that we can use for helping humanity. And so that could be tasks for analyzing video or images that you might have, all the way to what we're working on with Operant, which is to use those kinds of models to better understand how diseases work and develop better therapeutics for treating those diseases. And so over the past decade, I've worked at this interface between biology and AI, using deep learning as the tool for making progress. And over the course of that work, around 2016 or so, I was having drinks with my brother, who's another PhD. We're both dorks. And he, instead of focusing on the computational stuff, decided to focus on human disease biology. So trying to understand how targets for rare diseases and trying to develop therapeutics for those diseases. And he had just moved to the Gladstone Institute, where he was working with became our third co-founder at Operant Biopharma, Steve Finkbeiner. And they were generating an enormous amount of data describing how different diseases worked. And really, I guess I mentioned rare diseases, but another focus of theirs was neurodegenerative disease. So they had a ton of data, more data than they knew what to do with. And presumably, if we could figure out a way to analyze this data at scale, we would have a better way of understanding how these diseases work and treating those patients. But they just didn't know how to do it. So as we're having drinks, trying to figure things out, I tell them all about my work in deep learning. And we realized, and again, this is back in 2016. I know BioML is having its moment right now. But we realized this huge opportunity for bringing the types of models that I was developing, these brain-inspired models for, at the time it was computer vision, bringing those over to biology to help out researchers for understanding disease and hopefully to take advantage of all this data they were generating. A few papers later, we were having tons of success in bringing to bear the power of deep learning onto this imaging data that my brother, Jeremy Linsley, and our third co-founder, Steve Finkbeiner, were generating over at the Gladstone. And we realized that there was a new opportunity for bringing AI into biology, which really had not yet been explored yet. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but really the idea here is, how can you use AI not just to analyze data that's already been recorded, but AI to guide the entire experimental process, to make decisions that would help understand diseases better autonomously. And so that's what we're doing at Operant Biopharma. It's developing a new generation of artificially intelligent agents for designing biological experiments, autonomously discovering targets for treating diseases, and design therapeutics to treat those diseases and drug those targets.
Drew, thank you so much for that incredible insight into not just your own background, but the origin story behind Operant Biopharma. And really cool to hear how you, your brother, and one of your friends came up with the idea. So walk us through then the journey from the idea itself to the actual launch of the business, because obviously a lot takes place during that time frame, and bring us up to today where you are in the current iteration of the business and maybe some of the key therapeutic areas that you guys are trying to focus on.
So first, I want to start with the specific challenge that we're addressing here, which is that when developing therapeutics and trying to understand disease, most of the time what happens is you take what's called a snapshot of biology. You're going to freeze cells or some cellular model in time, take an image or sequence those cells or whatever. You're going to take some readout of the cellular biology. And that readout at one point in time for a dynamic biological system is what you're going to use to understand if something's healthy, sick, if your drug worked or didn't, so on and so forth. Going back about 20 years, my co-founder, Steve Finkbeiner, realized just how potentially fraught this approach for static snapshots of biology might be. And so he invented a new form of robotic microscopy. That robotic microscopy means we can start to develop video of how cells look and change over time. And these are the types of data that I alluded to earlier, just massive amounts of video for cellular biology. Now, that's really important because once you have those video, you can start to disentangle the cause and effect of different types of targets on the outcome of disease. And you can reduce the likelihood that the target you're focused on may be inconsequential or even compensatory for a disease. So by treating it, you might be either doing nothing or even hurting the patient. Okay, so in 2022, we had an idea, which is how can we take that idea of following the trajectory of disease to the next level? What kinds of problems do we experience when doing that over the past couple of decades? Well, the main problem is the only way we know how to analyze data is in the simple case of we have static snapshots of biology. We load it into Python or whatever, we start to analyze it, and we apply those same techniques for static snapshots to dynamic data. We say same thing for experimental design. We have all of our experimental design ideas from static data, and we try to port those over to dynamic data. But really, when we're talking about dynamics, we're talking about this infinitude of possibilities of how biology could progress from one step to the next. So our idea is we want to remove the human from that loop and introduce a robot that can intelligently figure out how to move biology from one step to the next. And we thought that by doing that, we could have a better grasp on the causal structure of disease and again, figuring out better treatments. So this is a really big idea, a really hard idea. And we have been talking about it for years, but finally in 2022, we took the jump, we incorporated our company, and with a small amount of angel money, friends and family type money, as well as support from Brown University for compute and Gladstone Institutes for wet lab, we started to develop the proof of concept and really validate these ideas within a robotic platform. So today what we've done is we built that robotic platform and we've used it to indeed better understand certain types of diseases. So you could, in principle, use this approach for any disease you can think of. But what we're really interested here in is using the platform to address those diseases with the highest unmet need. We're really having this dynamic perspective where you can have an artificially intelligent agent figure out what's going on with the disease will bring the biggest bang for the buck. So we've used it for what we call the large group of age-related diseases. That's anything from neurodegenerative diseases, which have essentially no treatments today, and yet which are the only top 10 killer in the US without any kind of disease-modifying therapy or treatment, as well as other age-related diseases of other systems, such as kidney, liver, and cardiac heart disease. So as of today, we've made significant progress in using our platform for a set of neurodegenerative diseases, those associated with a pathology called of a protein called TDP-43, as well as using it for developing or discovering mechanisms and designing therapeutics for a kidney disease, autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, which is the most common genetic rare disease in the US. So as of today, we have gone through that pre-seed angel period to develop our platform, prove out our ideas, generate the body of evidence that we need for ourselves to convince ourselves that this is a good approach going forward and that can scale to really address all these unmet needs in disease around the world. And along with that, beyond just the technical proof points, we've also developed some commercial proof points to convince ourselves and hopefully others that this approach really has legs and can be self-sustaining and scalable going forward.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, just adds further visibility to what's possible. And it's great to hear that you guys are already making significant inroads and seeing a lot of progress. So, Drew, I just want to switch directions slightly and to focus more so on the AI side of things here. Much of our audience will be AI and data professionals across a broad range of industries. So for people familiar with the biotech, biopharma space, what you're saying will make a whole lot of sense. But for those listening who are not coming from this space, when you look at the technology use cases, what more can you tell us about AI and ML and how it's playing a pivotal role in helping Operant Biopharma do what you're doing at the rate and scale that you're doing it?
There's multiple ways that we're using AI for biology, for understanding how different diseases work, and also how to treat them. So what we try to do is re-envision the entire preclinical drug discovery pipeline, which partially comprises of figuring out what targets work, and that just means mechanisms that might drive the progression of a disease, what those targets are, and then figuring out what drugs, what therapeutics might be useful for fixing or manipulating those targets. So in both cases, what we're talking about for a broader AI community is, and really this is the inspiration for our company, is how can we bring to bear the power of optimization tools directly onto biology. So I think what would help here is if I give you a little bit better idea of how the platform actually works. So the platform takes plates of cells, and those plates are put in under a microscope, and the microscope is controlled. That is a robot, so it's controlled by a computer. And that microscope will take images of those cells over time, so it can build up videos of those cells. But it can also use light in a technology called optogenetics to control the state of those cells over time. And so now you're talking about around 100,000 cells within a plate. That microscope has 100,000 different environments. Let's just use like kind of a general techie term, environments environments that it can start to manipulate with experiments or actions in order to change their states over time to drive them into whatever desired state the platform wants them to be in. So in this sense, if we can then put an artificial intelligent agent in control of that procedure of designing these light-based experiments at the single cell level, that AI has the opportunity to systematically search through biology, optimize the state of the cells in ways that are not possible for humans. So that's on the one hand how we explore biology. If you're starting to get triggered or thinking about techniques like reinforcement learning, world models, autonomous exploration, search, so on and so forth, that's exactly our inspiration here. On the molecule side, or the therapeutic design side, you have a very similar problem, which is when we're talking about a therapeutic modality like small molecules, these are the pills you take, your Advils, whatever, to treat whatever ailments you may have. We're talking about another search problem. So in the case of those molecules, you have a space of about 10 to the 60 synthesizable molecules, huge, basically uncountably large number of molecules. And what we need to do is figure out which of those molecules controls the biology that we're looking at and controlling ourselves with our robotic platform in ways that will improve the health of those cells. So without going too far into details, again, we have artificial intelligence handling that search problem of figuring out which molecules will make our biological models behave in the ways that we want them to. The overall approach in the company for all of these types of search problems is we throw our hands up And we say humans should not be the ones handling these search problems. Instead, we should be using optimization to figure out the best way to go from point A to point B in the trajectory of a biological system, in the life of a biological system, from sick to healthy, and figure out what kinds of mechanisms can modulate that causal chain. And likewise, how can we search through that massive space of molecules in order to figure out the right molecule that can do the same thing on those cells.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
So Drew, I know we've gone into a lot of detail here, which I think is important just to set the sort of landscape of what's possible. But taking it back up high level, when we look at the near-term project roadmap, the near-term objectives, particularly in the next 2 to 3 years, what are some of the things that you and the founders are most excited about? What are the high-level objectives that you're trying to accomplish? Just so we can visualize what the journey is going to look like for the next few years for you guys.
Yeah, to answer this question, I want to tell you about where I think the huge opportunity for AI in biology is. Of course, this search paradigm that I just described, this is hugely powerful. But if you look at how pharma companies and biotechs typically develop drugs, there's very good methods in place that do not use the types of sophisticated AI technologies I just described, and yet have shown a lot of success for different disease indications. But what we think is the huge opportunity for AI and bio is to bring that search paradigm, is to use that search paradigm I described for as many indications with these huge white spaces, these huge open areas for therapeutic development as we possibly can. So we call this horizontal therapeutic development, which is a little bit different than the usual biotech story. And the usual biotech biopharma story is you have one target or a couple of targets, and you have one or a couple of therapeutics, and you are growing your company, raising money in order to move those therapeutics down the clinical pipeline, raising a ton of money, a ton of risk. And it's a bit of, I think the term of art is a binary risk. It works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, game over. What we want to do is take advantage of AI to amortize a lot of that risk by moving horizontally and addressing a ton of different indications. So in the near term, what we've done with our small team today, as mentioned earlier, is we've made a ton of progress for neurodegenerative diseases and that kidney disease I've mentioned, ADPKD. So in our near term, our goal is to continue validating and moving those assets that we've found for those indications down the pipeline to a stage where we can begin out-licensing those and moving on to new indications. So on the one hand, we are a therapeutics company, and so we do have a little bit of overlap with those standard biotechs, but our goal is to exit early with those assets so we can continue moving and having the greatest possible impact for disease as possible. On the other hand, our platform, even today, has super sophisticated AI technologies. And we've found a lot of interest in biotechs and biopharmas for the use of those technologies in their own internal programs. So the other direction that we're taking is to license those technologies in partnerships to other biotechs and biopharmas to generate early revenue, to give us some access, to data on new indications, and synergistically help us move faster horizontally to address more and more diseases.
Drew, thank you so much for the level of detail you've gone into here, both the operational side of things and how it works, but high level possibilities. It gives us a good balance of what's possible. We always like to finish on growth and how that can translate to the need to acquire and add talent to your already talented crew that you've got. As the business grows, as Operant has success and gets traction and more demand, where do you anticipate needing to bolster your already talented AI team? What types of positions are you going to need the staff for in the future in order to make Operant Biopharma as successful as you've just talked about?
So we see our staffing needs as being unique even within the growing AI bio, tech bio field. So typically, I think what people are looking for with AI bio is someone with a computational biology background, somebody who's been working on sequencing data, doing some large data, some GWAS, so on and so forth. My background's a little bit different. And so I think what we're looking for are really folks that reflect the founders here. Perhaps that's a little bit circular, but we think that you need a bit of a non-standard background in order to succeed at this edge of what we think is the state of the art in AI and bio. So what we're looking for the AI folks that are listening are people with experience with state-of-the-art approaches to deep learning, for computer vision, for sequence modeling, which are pretty standard. Also folks with experience doing versions of reinforcement learning called imitation learning. All these are super relevant. And so at Operant Biopharma, what you would have, for what I think is the first time ever, the opportunity to apply, especially those control techniques from AI and machine learning to biology in real time. So that's a really special opportunity. But what I also think is unique about us is we're interested in folks that are not strictly computational bio, are not strictly at the state of the art for AI, but also those folks that have potentially a training in cognitive science, in cognitive neuroscience as well. This is a field that I was trained in originally. This is the field that gave me all my inspiration for modeling biology and using those models of biology to build better artificial intelligence. And while I think the level of granularity of biological knowledge isn't exactly matching what we're doing at Operant, I think the training, this type of background, is a perfect fit for what we're trying to do at the state of the art in AI bio. In parallel, I know this is more of a technical podcast, but we are also very interested in folks that have a more conventional biology or drug discovery background, but who are interested in breaking new ground with artificial intelligence to help their research and help their discovery efforts. This is what's so special about this time right now. What I always tell people, when you compare the state of the art for AI to the state of the art for AI in biology, is for the AI in biology, the latter, we're looking at a lag of about 5 to 10 years, I think, in terms of just how to use these techniques for biological data and really how to generate the right biological data to take full advantage of these latest and greatest techniques. So that's what makes this moment so special, is even if you do not have ideas about how to bring your background, be it in AI or purely in biology or chemistry or drug discovery, into the convergence of the two, I think what we're really asking for here are people who are excited to explore those opportunities at Operant. And of course, what we do at Operant is produce this extremely special data, which I think gives us the right opportunity to explore and grow and start to develop novel understandings that aren't available anywhere else.
Drew, thank you so much for that. What a great way to end an interesting conversation. Thanks for sharing your own background. First of all, great to learn about the origin story behind Operant Biopharma, the combination of your own background, your brothers, and then your colleagues, and coming up with a business that is looking to serve an area that badly needs it. And then the detail of how AI is helping you do it is really exciting. And most importantly, then the bit you just finished on, which is the opportunity for people who have a background somewhat within this field, and the fact that you guys are open to speaking with people and utilizing the skill set of people who may not have everything that you're looking for, but are passionate about the space, and you can utilize some of their skill set, I think is refreshing. So we're excited to see what you guys can accomplish in the months and years to come. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Operant Biopharma the very best of luck, and we look forward to having you back on the show again in the very near future. future.
Thanks, JP. It was a pleasure, and I also look forward to that.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.